Here I present a little bit longer video about cellular respiration. So its name is glycolysis and Krebs cycle, and also actually it is about 3 steps of cellular respiration, which includes glycolysis, Krebs cycle, or the citric acid cycle, and electron transport chain. So glycolysis, it involves reactions that turn one molecule of glucose into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. This process also results in production of 2 ATP molecules, net production, and then reducing NAD plus to NADH. Then Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, that's pyruvic ions, pyruvates are going through a series of some molecules, through chemical reactions, and produce 1 ATP molecules per 1 molecule of pyruvate. And then it is producing also 3 NADH and 1 FADH2 and 2 carbon dioxide molecules for every pyruvate molecules, so that enters the cycle. Because altogether glucose producing 2 pyruvate molecules, then we can have to amplify 2. So, okay, next, electron transport chain. It is where this reduced NADH and FADH2 are oxidized and used these electrons to the electron transport chain. And what is happening, altogether 34 molecules of ATP produced from 1 glucose molecules in the electron transport chain system. So here we see that glycolysis, it is consuming 2 ATP molecules, and then it is releasing 4 ATP molecules, and so net output is 2 molecules of ATP and 2 molecules of NADH that will donate electrons to electron transport chain. So the glycolysis is happening in cytoplasm of the cell, but the Krebs cycle is happening inside the mitochondrion, in the very center, in the matrix, so-called matrix of the mitochondrion. And electron transport chain is happening on the inner membrane of the mitochondrion. Okay, then humans, again, we need carbohydrates as a source of energy. This most easy way to produce energy. It's always, if glucose is available, our body prefer to use glucose to produce energy. But of course, it's sometimes we can use fatty acids and even amino acids to produce energy. So, again, problem with glucose is hydrophobic in nature, or hydrophilic, pardon. Glucose is hydrophilic, so it cannot get inside the cell because the membrane of the cell is from fat molecules and the phosphate molecules, and then it needs some transport protein to transport it inside, and then this so it cannot transport, and then it needs special transport mechanism, and this transport protein channel, it's called glucose transporter. And okay, then we will not go to many details. Then transmembrane proteins, they have these transporters, different kind, class 1, 2, 3, and then even 4, class 1 to 3, and the different proteins. Okay, we'll not go too much to these details, but you see that it looks like it is easy, like from 1 glucose we get 2 molecules of pyruvates, but it is actually has a lot of steps, and many enzymes are involved in this conversion. So altogether we consider only this and product, 2 molecules of pyruvic acid, pyruvate. Okay, as I said, glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm, and it all together in this glycolysis 10 enzymes are involved in breaking down sugar, and these 10 steps of glycolysis are organized in such order that specific enzymes act upon the glucose. Okay, then we will not go into these details, step 1, step 2, because it's as I said, even so simple reaction, it looks like so simple reaction, it has many steps, it's many steps, 10 steps to get from glucose to pyruvate and ATP. What is interesting, we have to pay attention that cancer cells, they can use mostly glycolysis to produce energy, but healthy cells, they produce mostly the ATP molecules, mostly they produce by oxidation in the membrane, in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. So why? Because the cancer cells, they need carbon to produce proteins and to produce fatty acids, and they are saving carbon, so they don't produce much of carbon dioxide. Mostly they use lactate, produce lactate by this fermentation, and process of fermentation, glucose first to pyruvic acid, pyruvate, and then to lactate. Lactate is can get transported to outside the cell and inside the cell. So what we are getting, the environment in the cancer cells are acidic, both in the cells and out of the cells. This is a kind of self-protection of the cancer cells against our immune system, because if we have too much acidity, immune cells cannot operate in such environment. This difference between cellular respiration in cancer cells and normal cells is called Warburg effect. Warburg effect. Even in presence of oxygen, the cancer cells prefer to produce energy by fermentation, because they need carbon. They need carbon for synthesis of these proteins and amino acids. Proteins, amino acids, and fatty acids. Okay, then of course fat and fatty acids and monoglycerides can be also consumed in our body as energy. For energy, it is actually a more healthy way to produce energy, but it is the way it is a little bit more complicated. I will not go into details because it is that's fatty acids first, fat first gets split to fatty acids and monoglycerides, and then inside the epithelium layer they again get molecules of fat, and then this fat is transported by chylomicron inside the lymphatic vessels, not in the blood. Difference. Okay, so as we see here on the plot, that glucose gets through these transporters inside the cytosol. Inside the cytosol goes this the transformation to pyruvic acid, and if it is lactic acid with no oxygen, can be lactic acid produced. And but if in presence of oxygen, pyruvate gets inside the mitochondria, inside the its inner membrane, and then it gets converted to acetyl coenzyme A, and then participate in the Krebs cycle, and then next it with electron transport chain can go through in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Okay, here it is citric acid cycle presented. As you see, it's even like glycolysis also includes 10 steps. Here it's also a lot of steps, a lot of enzymes involved to do the job. Also, as I said, some amino acids can be used, like glutamine, glutamine is a major fuel for cancer cells. And glutamine is amino acid. Why? Because again, much ATP can be produced such way in the Krebs cycle. Glucose and glutamine metabolism in cancer cells is designed to maximize production of cellular building blocks, carbon blocks, rather than energy production. So it is also good to know that again, cancer cells, they flourishing if body has a lot of glucose in blood. So to reduce level of glucose, it is to fight the cancer cells. Okay, here the way of how glutamine gets converted to glutamate, and glutamate enters the Krebs cycle. Okay, then we will not go to many details because I did it for myself mostly because I want to understand how we can increase production of energy in our body. And again, all this description of the Krebs cycle is relatively new, even if it discussed, even it was discovered before the Second World War. Then some details till now only recently appeared, and some believe that it's only 5 steps, others claim that 8 and 9. Okay, it differs a little bit, but okay, as we see that electron transport chain is getting on this folds of the inner membrane, so it produces most of the ATP. Oxidative decarboxylation is again what is decarboxylation? It is conversion of the pyruvate into the acetyl coenzyme A. This is an important part because otherwise it will not work. Krebs cycle cannot work. So acetyl coenzyme A moves to the next step, which is again Krebs cycle begins from this. Okay, then I go to description how the stages of the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, how it goes. It's, as I said, it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps. Okay, and then all together net product is every glucose molecule producing 2 pyruvic acid molecules by glycolysis, and then it is responsible for 2 rotations for 2 turns of the cycle. And how it goes: acetyl coenzyme A, it's plus 3 molecules of NAD plus, and then it is eventually get transformed to this number of reactions. Okay, then 5 products of the Krebs cycle: 1 ATP molecule per rotation, 2 carbon dioxide molecules per rotation, and 1 molecule of the FADH plus, and 3 molecules of NADH per rotation, and this guanoside triphosphate, which is again this is a source of this inorganic phosphorus. Okay, this guanosine triphosphate is a molecule similar to ATP, and it assists in protein amino acid synthesis. Okay, this again I make so many details because I just prepared this presentation for myself to understand it deeper, because all this cellular respiration is the base of life, and to understanding of this cellular respiration is so important to stay healthy and to live longer actually, because aging is, for example, aging is uh, uh, what is aging? Aging is less production of energy in mitochondria and more energy production by glycolysis. So it makes our body more acidic, and it is we are losing energy. We don't produce enough energy, and eventually cancer can develop, or that's our inflammation of the organs. So it's important to understand how to fight this, how to improve the efficiency of this Krebs cycle, and how to keep it right, and also how to all the cellular respiration to avoid situations that it will produce this lactic acid, lactate. Instead, it has to be to produce only water and carbon dioxide. Electron transport chain is very complicated. It has five proteins involved, and then you see in steps is how it is actually pumping protons from a matrix from inside of the mitochondria. It is pumping between the inner and outer membrane of the mitochondria. And you see here 2 protons, here 4, 2, and here 3, and then here it is. Okay, you see that, and one protein, and here it is presented. So we have this 1, 2, 3, 4 complexes, but then ATP is produced in here with enzyme which is ATP synthase, and this converting ADP to ATP with hydrogen with protons in the intermembrane space. Proteins go in this, and this energy is used to produce ATP molecules. And citric acid cycle is in matrix, opening in matrix. Okay, here electron transport chain. That's how it happens, how it is water produced in this, carbon dioxide produced previously, and electron transport chain produce only water. Okay, then it's again this ATP synthase. Synthase is a complex protein which works like quite complicated, and it is using proton gradient between intermembrane and matrix, and then it is using this separation of protons in the gradient of the protons concentration, and to form ATP from ADP to form ATP from ADP and so-called inorganic phosphate PI. I is index considered. Okay, so that's all. I just want to tell you that again that quite many complicated reactions are going, and this is the base of life, and it's so important to understand how to prevent the reduction of the efficiency of this Krebs cycles and the electron transport chain. So how to till old age to keep this cellular respiration working smoothly. It's very important. Okay, that's all. So thank you for your attention.